Hello, everybody. Happy 2022. This is our first webinar for Aqua for this year. So looking forward to showing you some of the latest features in Aqua and then some momentum with the new things we're working on, and including this reoccurring webinar. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But right now you should be seeing my full screen and the aquafold.com homepage. And so we'll start there, but I have the product open, and so just under help about, you can see the link to the homepage as well. So aquafold.com has been the community site for nearly 20 years, and a lot of good help here. So just to start, here's where we are right now, right on aquafold.com. Here's this reoccurring webcast. So we like to mix these up. We have a couple of persona themes coming up. This one focuses on just the universal IDE concept. So we'll introduce some of the core areas for different types of users. And then we have a future release with the dark theme for the more coding centric users of Aqua, and then maybe some DBA deep dive, analyst deep dive. So look at the cadence here for the reoccurring webcast. We have new users that join this, or existing users will share with their team, see what we're working on. And then a couple of administration areas. All the lines are on mute. With the scope of the audience we have for these, that's the easiest. And we'll cover a lot, so some of your questions might be answered, but there is GoToMeeting dialog boxes where you have a question, maybe jot it down, or if you might have it answered within the scope of what we cover. And then the other area here on the home page that maybe is most important, way towards the lower portion, you have the documentation links. And so this will jump into either the data sheet or the online wiki, right? So here's just a quick screenshot of the data sheet. PDF maybe helpful to share as an initial overview document. Here's the online wiki with searchable keywords, and then drill downs for all the core areas that we'll cover here today. So some of these are tied to, say, main menus, right? So query analyzer, query builder, visual analytics, you'll see those within the main menus for Aqua. So an over 20-year updated wiki, and these are great utilities for you. So just by going to the community site, you have those two from the front page, the reoccurring webcast and the documentation, and then some other banner bars here across the top that are filled with collateral, videos, other snippets of code, shareable code. So here, if I went into, say, more details on Aqua, there's a drill down, a summary area here. But for those of you perhaps new to what an IDE is, that stands for Integrated Development Environment. And so, there's different IDEs, right? There's developer IDEs. Aqua's a database IDE. So the concept of, say, pop-out windows, right? So you have pop-out windows that you can dock or pin, right? So here you can see some different ways of organize my desktop. Perhaps workspace in the middle is kind of a theme with IDEs, right? And so you can see some different coding tabs here that I have opened within my Aqua environment. And then there's also some floating or standalone windows. Aqua's a studio, kind of an all-in-one. And so the query builder, visual analytics, ER modeler, these are floating windows. And so I have a couple of those open here where you can work in these full screen and individually. And use Aqua in the way that's most effective for you. So those are some concepts, what we mean by IDE. And then also perhaps here, just to expand this or maybe even unpack this complicated introduction line here, Aqua's a tool for developers, DBAs, and analysts to handle databases and data, right? So that pretty much covers everybody that has a laptop, right? Or anybody that works remotely and has to connect to data sets or databases. And so those are some of the areas that we like to maybe break down here during these reoccurring webcasts. You might have different users that use Aqua differently, right? So the DBAs might focus here on the DBA drill downs, the ER modeling, perhaps some of the tools drill downs, where an analyst might focus on the data-centric areas, the visual analytics, perhaps the import-export data, and so on and so forth. So what's great about Aqua is it stays current. We're always working on new features, new releases. And then it's a lot of value, right? So here's the pricing drill down. Individuals can download a version and install and pay for it with a credit card, or perhaps bigger groups maybe reach out and talk to us, where if you have large quantities of seats or licenses, there's multi-year licenses, there's discounts for numbers of users. You can plug and play here, some different ways of saving, and then we're on the fourth quarter, so there's all kinds of promotional discounts that you might see here, and so definitely reach out and talk to us. Here's the aquafold.com, and then you see IDERA in the background there. So, IDERA.com is where you also see a link to Aqua Data Studio. So you might know some of the other flagship products from IDERA, like ER Studio and SQL Diagnostic Manager. And so the partnership that we have with a lot of companies as a major software vendor has really expanded the footprint of Aqua. And then the aquafold.com is really a branding website. So lots of content here, especially the resources drill down. So this video or videos like this get posted, and then you can even isolate or drill down and choose different types and help the learning curve for Aqua. So a lot of collateral here on the community site. And then if we just get started, or maybe here's how Aqua would look when you first install, you just have a clean layout, and then you'd be prompted to connect to a database. So this is kind of a clean layout that you might first see when you connect to Aqua, or here the very first icon on the top left would allow you to connect to a database or server, register server. You see the icon there as well. This is the starting point for Aqua. So to connect to your different databases, you can expand this and then build your own folders, server groups, but here register server, this would be, say, the starting point. And this is where there's been a lot of development in Aqua over the years, right? So Aqua started with the big platforms in the early 2000s, and now has grown to support different environments, NoSQL, cloud, hosted environments, and then of course Amazon, right? And so AWS environments, AWS RDS, right? These have all been added to Aqua. You'll see some of this in the hover over, right? But sometimes it's embedded in other ways, right? So here you can see a couple of the alphabetical listings for Amazon Athena and Redshift. But then here, you can highlight other connections, and then you'll see where there's different support. So there's AWS for Postgres, right? Or if I was to look at Oracle, right? Here's Oracle with some different options. And so you can hover over and see some different ways we connect. There's more AWS. And then of course from the community site, there's different ways here to see. If I click on platforms, here's an overview of all the platforms that Aqua supports. Also, as a Java tool, Aqua installs in different OSs, including a Mac, and that's one of the other demonstrations later on this quarter. We'll be showing Aqua live on a Mac. And so that's a nice separator. We have different users from different generations that might prefer one operating system or another, and Aqua covers the main ones for you with Windows client, Mac client, or even a Linux client. So you can click on these hyperlinks from here. Maybe if I right click here, maybe open up an Oracle tab, here's a Snowflake tab. This will show a summary of what Aqua does for that platform, right? So just pointing that out. But again, here's the list of all the platforms. So we say over 40, but probably more than that now with the different versions of platforms. So there you can see, for Oracle, we're back 9i up to 19c. Here for, say, SQL Server, similar. If I hover over, you'll see the hover over text there, where we go from, say, SQL 2000 to 2019, and so on and so forth. So then the driver tab here is where there's also a lot of value with Aqua. We bundle the JDBC driver, and so connecting is very quick and easy, right? So here you can see what's needed, right? These are customized areas here in the first. Name it, color code it in a way that's recognizable for you, and then your credentials, right? So you'd either know these already, or you'd have these from your DBA, and then here's where you can see for, say, Redshift, host name, IP address. For Athena, more of an endpoint URL, AWS region, and so on and so forth. So If I was to right click, say, on an existing connection, go into server properties, here I can test that connection, see the 2 handshake check, where first is your network, right? Are you VPN correctly where you're talking to the server? And then are your credentials correct? So nice, easy ways to help isolate if you are having a connection issue. And then these are simple connection files. And so if you ever get a new machine and you want to migrate your connection files, you just bring these over to that folder in Aqua, and it's very easy to keep all these connections organized. And now if I expand the tree here, here's a folder I created with some cloud environments to Amazon, some local on-premise RDBMS type in terms of MySQL or SQL Server. And so as you expand the nodes or the tree, there might be some differences. For Amazon Redshift, I see databases, management security. For MySQL, I see databases, management security. But then Redshift has external databases, so you might see something specific to a platform, and like that example. And then depending on whether schemas are used, right? So if I drill in here to, say, my Redshift tree, I drill into my schemas, and then I see my object types there. So tables, views, indexes, stored procs for those developers or more coder-centric users. And so then you can see those differences as well, depending on the platform. And then management security, this is more maybe DBA areas, right? Users, privileges, roles, killing sessions, seeing current activity. And again, that ties to some of these DBA drill downs as well. So depending on your role or your job responsibilities and where you may use Aqua, you can customize this tree. And then here's a duplicate, right? Register server clone. So you could just duplicate a connection and then maybe change the user credentials, and then you have your different environments in ways that make sense for you. And then here we're looking at is say a query analyzer, right? So the SQL editor in Aqua is called the query analyzer. And then you'll have multiple query analyzers. Here's a clone with content, right? So and that's the workspace or the SQL editor area here. And then we'll introduce the execution arrows, right? The parse, execute all, execute current, and those are tied to the main menu in the query analyzer as well, right? Okay, so just getting started here. Hopefully the audio and visual is coming through okay, but if I start to expand some of these areas, you can see different ways of organizing your Aqua artifacts, right? And so here, if I was to just right click and create a mounted directory, perhaps I work as a team and we could hand off work or collaborate that way. Perhaps if you use a OneNote or Google Docs, similar concept. Version control integration is supported for some of the major platforms. Or you could manually just check in files for any type of version control system. So Aqua has the concept of savable files, shareable files. And then projects leading towards, say, team development, or maybe if you work in a group and do some scripting and automation areas. So projects are documented, and you can look into those. Right click here and you can see some of the project capability and ways of maybe taking Aqua to another level and maybe some advanced features. So if you're new to Aqua, I'd say dive in, learn the tool a little bit, and then for those of you that are familiar with IDEs like this, projects might be appealing to you. And then the tools menu, right, will expand some of those areas, right? And so here, for example, I mentioned projects here under the tools menu. You could schedule a project to execute, right? So just introducing some of the scope and diversity of Aqua, but let's keep moving along here. Again, for say an IDE, a universal IDE type theme, let's introduce some of the basics. Here, if I was to say drill into one of these environments here, maybe I'll drill into one of these test databases here or my world database. Right click, and then there's the query analyzer, or as you have this highlighted, you can see the first grouping of icons is for connecting, and then here you could see other icons for invoking a SQL editor connection, right? So if you're comfortable typing SQL, that's great. Of course, you have some of the auto completion and color coding and IntelliSense type windows, right? So here, if I maybe select a field or a table and then execute that with the execution arrow, bring back a result set, boom, I'm good to go. I can get to this data in different ways. So there is, comfortable typing. If I just right click here, maybe drill into these tables, right click, here's ways of Aqua automatically writing SQL for you, right? So maybe I'm not an expert at how to write SQL. Why don't I right click, here's a select star, or here, right click, here's with the qualified path, right? And then here's create, right? So you have different DML and DDL options just from the right click menu. And then if I expand the query main toolbar menu, you see the definition of the green run arrows, right? So you have that as well if you hover over. So parse would parse through that query analyzer. I can see I have 3 different statements here. Execute all would execute all of them and bring back your different result tabs. Or I could just select one line or one statement, and then there's execute current. So I could execute just an individual SQL and then work on that data. So pretty standard. You have different separators. I'm from maybe an Oracle background with semicolon, but Go statements are supported. And of course, a tool like Aqua has many options, right? So just file options, you have 20 years worth of options here you can drill down into. But here's maybe a big one, the semicolon separator. If you like that, you can have that checked, so on and so forth. There's a search here in the options, so that's great as well. And these are areas you might expect in a universal IDE, where obviously a universal means we support different databases, and so there might be variations. And here's an example. If I drill into the scripts drill down, you might have customizations for the different platforms, and so that's where you can really expand on the scope of what's gone into the Aqua development. It's not just ported from platform to platform. These are customized areas that were built for the different big vendor databases. All right, so maybe let's keep moving here, just to keep an eye on the clock, but perhaps diving into some of the other IDE areas. Here I right-clicked and brought up a query analyzer. A little bit further on the right-click menu is the query builder, right? And so query analyzer, type SQL, query builder. Maybe I'm newer to writing SQL. I'd like to take advantage of the drag and drop white space, and then have Aqua build SQL for me again, right? So here, if I just brought over one table, there it writes a select star, boom, I could run that, get back to my data set that way. So pretty easy, whether you're using an IDE window like the query builder or just typing SQL. If you have your own SQL scripts, that's fine. So if this is a little more basic for some of you, then that's okay, but maybe inherit a database you weren't as familiar with. And look how Aqua can help. Now I could execute, say, against multiple tables and then work on this data set. So okay, so this is again savable, right? File save as, and so we've looked at, say, a SQL statement, so that would have file save as well. Then we've executed SQL either in the query analyzer or here in the query builder. And then, if I wanted to send that data to Excel, I could do that with just a single click, right? And so where you have these different IDE windows and the data grid, here you can see some similarities, right? So there's an Excel icon above the data set in the query analyzer. Here's the Excel icon in the query builder. So if I wanted to see this data in Excel, I could just one click and view it there. And then here's ways of maybe highlighting data, and then there's different ways of bringing that back into Aqua, right? So just covering some of the basics here in terms of the query analyzer and query builder. So server, query analyzer, query builder, those are some themes. And then, taking action on your data might be the next step, right? So, there's the data in Excel if I wanted to see it there. Here I could highlight my data, right click, there's save results, and maybe a more traditional wizard where, okay, I want to save this as a delimited file. I want to create insert statements. I want to send that to Excel, to a directory. That's fine. And then, here's maybe the next generation of functionality for working with data, rather than maybe going to Excel and building your pivot grids and charting from Excel. Visual analytics, has grown quite a bit over the years, and Aqua has easy ways of showing that. So some of the BI tool type features of dimensions and measures and charts and graphs, and then worksheets and dashboards, those fall under the visual analytics in Aqua. And so, some users might maximize this window, and this is where they'll spend their time, right? And so here, I could say data, connect to data, and then here are the queries I just executed in Aqua, right? And so, this might be helpful for some of you. I could choose, say, a query in the cloud, and then start to tell a story here with this environment or this window in Aqua, right? And so, Visual Analytics New would open up a new window, and I can start there with the connect to data, or to send to an existing, there's the drop down arrow, and this would allow me to add this data set to, say, an existing workbook, right? And so, just similar ways to get to the same area here, but maybe let's keep moving. So here, if I said new worksheet, then, this would allow me to, say, open up or, bring over my dimensions and measures and build some kind of a chart or graph here with that data set, right? So, here's, say, a pie chart, here's, say, a bar graph, right? So maybe I'll try something different here. So here's a drop down, right? Maybe I'll switch to pie chart here, and then maybe I'll bring over some of these values, right? So here's, say, my profit value, and then if I hover over, here's drag dimension or measure here. So dimensions are non-numerical, measures are numerical, right? And so here's my profit value just in a pie chart. So if I maybe drag and drop my state into the color box, this could create a chart for me that way, right? So that might be a little more colorful or helpful, right? And then here's undo and redo, right? So I can go back. Here's the geo box, right? So maybe I'd like to create some kind of a map, right, of where where I'm making sales or where there's profit, right? And then from here I could right click and take action. I could say maybe duplicate this worksheet, and then maybe I'll just highlight, say, North America, right? And then here I could say keep only, and now here's just, say, a region and say the West Coast or North America. So different choices here to tell a story, and then bring that into perhaps you have a presentation to your new boss, right? So file, export, you could export this or maybe post this in case you have some kind of web browser environment, and you can post in HTML some of these data sets, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the visual analytics, very exciting area. And again, with the all-in-one in Aqua, for a single license, you have all of these areas, and so it makes it very convenient. And if maybe this isn't an area that you need to work on, right? Maybe you're a DBA and you focus more on, say, these DBA drill downs, right? Looking at performance, storage, transactions, but maybe you might realize, oh yeah, you know what? Our data analyst team needs this. And that's how you can leverage some economies of scale, and perhaps you have different users of Aqua using Aqua quite differently, right? All right, so maybe let's keep moving there with some of those themes, right? If I'm a DBA, right click, here's the tools menu in the DBA tools. So those are invocable from the right click. When you drive from the main menu, Aqua will say, okay, what's the database you're working on, right? So if I say tools, import data, then Aqua will say, okay, which connection are you using? So when you right click, maybe a little easier, and then that would step you into a wizard. So here's, say, the import data wizard, and this would then open up a tab. And now, this I could undock this, right? Floating. And now here's an easy to use, 5 or 6 step wizard to get this Excel data into a database table, right? And then it's available for other users, right? And so you have some of these easy to use features. Here's save statements. Here's maybe preview. And so, just with a couple of clicks, you have the hover over, here's, hundreds of lines of insert statements that's savable, rerunnable, right? And that's really a theme for Aqua. It's a very nimble tool, powerful tool, single toolbar, lots of right click menus, save you time, and, the right price point, right? You get a lot of value for Aqua. Where it saves you a lot of time compared to multiple freeware tools, and then it's a cost-effective price point compared to some more expensive tools. Okay, so maybe a couple of other themes for a DBA. Right click here. Here's reverse engineering, right? So tools, ER diagram generator. Now this is just for tables and views, right? If you need enterprise data modeling, of course, ER Studio would be the tool from IDERA that would like to recommend. And then here's maybe for some just quick diagramming, maybe quick scripting, right? So generate script. I could script out these objects, have those in perhaps a version control system. Or maybe make this available, right? So tools generate HTML report. Maybe I need to just post this and tell the analysts, don't call me, just check the link and you'll know what tables, to drag and drop into the query builder, right? And then everybody's working a little more effectively. And then here, compare features, right? So here maybe I have a more complex data model. And then if I wanted to do some compare, you have compare here, compare with model, compare with database. So this, this brings in some helpful features of comparison that maybe leads us into the tools menu, where here, okay, these are equal. This is new on one side, this is different, but in both, right? So on and so forth. So here's another one of the all-in-one areas, right? Obviously the IDE connect to all these different databases with the register server. Then, the query builder, visual analytics, maybe for the data-centric user. Then the DBA, the ER modeler, or some of these drill downs, right? Schema script generator, server script generator. And so, these are areas that maybe a DBA would be, very familiar with. Schema script generator, right? I can easily script out all my DDL, all my objects. Server script generator. And then, here's compare tools, where we just showed the model compare. Here's schema compare, data compare, right? So if I launch these from the tools menu, you choose the left and right hand side, right? Or flip flop those. Maybe a little more time saving is just to multi-select from the tree, right? So if I just multi-select here and then right click there, boom, is a schema compare. And I save some time here, hit compare, and I can see what's different within a few clicks. And then, maybe catch something that didn't make it over, or see what's missing between one side and another, right? Okay, these objects are both but different. These are only on one side. These are only on the other side. Okay. All right, so maybe just to keep an eye on the clock here, the tools menu has added some other more powerful features that might be appealing. Mentioned the compare tools. They added data compare wizard, so that's for data compare and synchronization. Automation, right, continues to grow, and users ask for that. So we have, scheduling just a Windows task, and then there's scheduling scripts. And then, for the developer, we have debugging for some of the major RDBMS platforms, and then we added unit testing for Postgres and SQL Server. Data masking is kind of neat, just an easy way to hide data. If you run a query and maybe it has some sensitive information, you can mask that and then provide that data set with some of the data hidden for certain users. So it's just within the UI of using Aqua. And then, there's other great features over the years. One of the neat ones for DBAs is Fluid Shell, right? Where there's a shell utility listed for all the platforms, where you have command line features, right? And so, some users can really get a lot done just from the command line and typing. So we like to show that. But really, flexible here. And then, I mentioned some of the collateral here for you. So here, if I go in here to the online wiki, mentioned, some of the searchable topics and some of those, we just covered, right? So query analyzer, right? How do you use the query analyzer, right? Just different screenshots and then the different themes there, so on and so forth, right? So query builder, visual analytics, maybe DBA tools, right? So database administration tools, there's compare tools, scripting options, right? So very helpful online wiki. And then some of the, the shorter recordings are easy as well, right? So some of these are 10 minutes, some of these are 5 minutes. And so look for these to continue. The team's expanding, right? Of course, some of you may receive communications from Allison. Allison's team's expanding. I think Sam Hutton might be joining. We have Anil and Tim, right? So a lot of momentum from the Aqua side, and this is how we keep current, listen to our customers, and we want to partner with you, let you take advantage of different relationships that Aqua has with different product lines, and then of course IDERA being our parent company. You can really leverage some economies of scale. We have data warehouse automation, data lake functionality, and then tying those together and really talking to the same people within your company that have to manage all these different environments. So Aqua is a great tool, a lot of value here. Definitely talk to us. There's different ways of saving and discounts. And then, it's nice to talk to you, hear what you're working on. So that's where this reoccurring webcast can be helpful, and we try to mix it up. So look for that, and then we will talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining,